listening to the Iterators of the Imperium.
Hi, I'm MEZ, and I'm here with my co-host Ryan, and you're listening to Season 3 of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast, the podcast in which Ryan is the expert on Warhammer 40K, and I am the noob trying to learn about the Warhammer universe. And as you guys can see, our virtual studio is in flames because we're talking about the traitors. But yeah, let's get into it. So Ryan, who are we talking about today?
Well, as per usual, MEZ, we have our little routine for this.
Yes.
It's just occurred to me. I never. Oh, never mind. Doesn't matter. So, irrelevant nonsense. Don't worry about it. So, usual routine. Okay.
Yes.
In this episode, you are just a little super baby, as you are aware. For theoretical, metaphorical, whatever. Right? It's for the sake of storytelling, I guess. Narration's sake. So you're a baby.
Yes.
So, obviously, you have no idea what is going on around you. You are innocent to the wonders and horrors of the galaxy, which is a heavily skewed list, I might add.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So, the year is somewhere between 700 and 800 of the 30th millennia. So the Nest has just been born, Eldar messed up. The Eye of Terror now exists, which is, fun for all.
Yes.
Yes. That will have absolutely no bearing on how terrible your life is, I promise. On Terra, the Emperor of Mankind has finally, unified humanity and is ready to set out into the galaxy and start crusading and shit.
Yeah.
But none of that is where we're starting today. We are starting with you, MEZ. This little baby who has been yeeted through the warp and through space to crash to Earth on a random planet.
Yes,
now,
sir.
Interesting detail this time. We have a year for this one.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. 793 of the 30th millennia. So the year 30,793, apparently, is when this takes place. But the planet you landed on was this one here. Olympia.
Oh, it looks like
Looks like Saturn.
Saturn.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bit of that. I don't know why it looks like Saturn, but yeah, it looks like Saturn.
It's nice.
It is nice. It does look nice. Yeah. What the fuck? Sorry, my computer's flashing me random messages again. Let me just check something.
Oh god.
Okay, it's still doing everything it's supposed to. It's just, I think it's still trying to update.
Technical issues. It's all right.
It still seems to be doing what it's supposed to. It just seems to be trying to do extra shit at the same time and doing it badly. I'll just make sure I can still. I'll just make sure.
The listeners, if you can hear this, everything is all right. Yes.
Yes, that's a solid point. So this planet right here, right? So this is Olympia, right? Very cool name for a planet, but it is like a kind of rough mountainous world, right? Which it's not really to any extremes of environment, which is good, other than having a fair number of pretty big mountains. It's not like they're volcanoes like Vulcan's world or anything like that. They're just it's just mountainous, right? It's a pretty chill place otherwise. But because it is so mountainous, what you end up with is a massive amount of stone that can be quarried. So this planet is very resource rich, but not in a like technological sense, just in like a structural sense. You can build a lot with an ass load of stone. You just can't like do anything fancy with it, really, right? So that along with the fact that the world's primary populace is made up of a bunch of city-states that all like vie for their own individual political power, right? Yeah. So rather than it being countries, it's like one city which acts as its own like individual political power, and there's tons of them all over the planet, and they all have like their own wars and allegiances and stuff. So pretty standard thing to exist, to be honest with you. Nothing too poncy there. But because that's the way the political structure of this planet has ended up, and the fact that they have an ass load of stone, all these city-states have their own gigantic fortresses. They're all like Well, you know the city from Attack on Titan? They're all like that. They're all massive walled cities and things like that. Because they just had too much stone.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And it makes war really fun and dull. Which makes it take a really long fucking time to commit, to do war.
That's alright, though.
Yeah, but this is the planet you landed on. Now,
Yes.
you don't have a particularly interesting story for the first year, and not a lot really happened, right? Because that we know of, because you don't really remember it.
Okay.
So what we do know is that you spent your first year or so wandering this planet alone. So basically, as a child, you were just walking around with nothing to do, trying to figure out what the hell was going on, where the hell you were and all this. And in the process, you gained a title as a slayer of legendary beasts. In reality, you were probably just confused and disorientated while wandering a planet that you had no idea what was going on. Even who you were, never mind where you were or what was happening, and just defended yourself. And in the process, people were like, God, this guy's a beast. Right? But you're just like, where the fuck am I? Why is there a tiger chasing me? It's like, no. But yeah, you ended up as this wandering murderer of great beasts that people were like, oh, have you heard of this kid? He's like an absolute unit. But no one knew who the fuck you were, and you didn't know who the fuck you were. Or anything else for that matter.
It's all just one big dream, it seems.
That's kind of how it was working for you, to be honest with you. You were just kind of stumbling through life. That did eventually change, though, because you were found while climbing a mountain by some guards of a city-state which was on this mountain. Right?
Yeah.
So they were just patrolling and came across a kid climbing up the side of the mountain. And they were like, the fuck are you doing? So, they obviously realised pretty quickly that you didn't know who you were, where you were, or what was going on. You were just kind of going, right? You just picked a mountain and decided to climb, right? So, because you had no prior memory for some reason, and you were obviously not a normal child because you were climbing up the side of a fucking mountain, and were very confused about what was going on. But you also didn't pose an immediate threat. You didn't try to attack them or anything. You didn't seem violent. But you were obviously not an ordinary kid. So they were like, I mean, yeah, we're taking you to the boss. So they took you to their leader.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, I'm guessing at this point, because of how bewildered and confused you were, you just went along with stuff. Right? Unless they were a threat, you were just like, sure, I guess. I was just going to keep climbing otherwise. So I was going to climb to the top, climb back down the other side. I may as well follow you.
I got nothing else better to do, right?
Exactly, right?
Well. Yeah.
At least you can have a conversation on the walk. So you just kind of went with it. So they took you to their leader, who was a man named Damikos. So he was known to the people as the Tyrant of Lokos, because the city-state he controlled was Lokos, and he was an arsehole.
Yes.
Yeah. So, after he met you and kind of talked to you for a bit, realised also that you had no idea who you were, where you were, or anything like that. No prior memories, really. But that you obviously were quite unique. You were obviously quite intelligent, quite powerful. He decided, well, I'm keeping this one. He decided to adopt you into his household. So you went from wandering around this planet randomly in the Badlands and stuff to being adopted into this tyrant's household with his 3 kids. So you suddenly had 2 brothers and a sister. You never really took to any of them. You kind of treated everyone on this planet with vague distrust and contempt. Which is not out of place, being that you felt out of place in everything. Because, this world didn't feel like home to you. These people weren't your family. You didn't know who you were. You didn't know why you were here, what was going on. It makes sense not to trust these people or to think of them as family. Although, your brothers and your dad, or Damikos, I guess, adopted dad, did try to kind of, bring you into the family. They were nice to you, as far as you would expect from a guy that was titled as a tyrant. He kind of takes it as a nickname as well, as the worst part. It's not like even his enemies know him as that. Everyone knows him as that. So, like, these obviously weren't particularly great people, but, like, they tried to be nice to you. They tried to treat you as, like, an adoptive brother and son, and you just weren't really interested. You kept them kind of at arm's length. Except your sister. I believe her name was Caliphon. You liked her. She was a bit more genuine with you. You got a little bit of a bond with her. It wasn't like a big deal, but like of all the people on this planet, she was the one that you actually ended up taking to the most. She was kind of like your safe haven in this whole thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But as, time goes on, you grow up, Damikos realised pretty quickly that you were insanely smart and pretty well skilled in most areas. Everywhere from art to politics to combat, right? You basically took to anything like a fish in water, which is pretty standard in this season, I'm going to be honest with you, right? Rarely have you been bad at something so far. Now, of course, rumour spread of this wondrous child that Damikos had acquired, and then he started using that rumour to, like, create alliances and stuff, because people wanted to, like, meet you. People wanted to, like, be teamed up with a guy that had this amazing kid that could do all this insane shit. So he ends up using it to gain political power and military might. Which is not great. You see why he's called a tyrant.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, but like everyone just kind of thought you were like a total miser. They just thought you were like cold and broody all the time, which again, not out of place. Like it makes perfect sense that that's the way you would come off. So because you were just kind of at odds with your entire environment, Like I'm trying to make this as clear as possible that you just felt totally out of place, and like. To give you a better reason to explain this with, through your whole life, once in a while you would have like dreams or like visions, right? But they weren't like sanguineous of seeing the future or seeing your own death or anything like that. They were of this gigantic swirling maelstrom of energy, of energy. This tear in the fabric of reality in the center of the galaxy, swallowing planets. Just this horrific concept of bewilderment, basically. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around, but you knew it was horrifying, and it stuck with you, basically, at all times. But you never told anyone about it, because your father was obviously using you for, political might and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and if
for his own gain.
Yeah, and if you tell him about this, he'll probably end up, not seeing it as a good thing, and you'll end up worse off for it. So you kept it to yourself, but you were constantly tortured with these horrific images of the Eye of Terror. Yeah, so you were pretty out of place on this planet, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was all just through sheer bad luck that you ended up this way, But all of that aside, you ended up taking a name upon you, right? And it wasn't a name of, like, great warriors or anything, which was the kind of thing that would be expected of you. The name you took was one that was a title given to people that had, like, incredible skills, right? So, like, the greatest artisans and stuff like that in history were given this title. Right?
Yeah.
In the real world, it's actually it's part of a saying that Aleister Crowley took up for a while. The demonologist and occultist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he took up this title for a while. The title is Perturabo.
Oh.
Yeah. And that is the name you took upon yourself. Perturabo.
Yeah.
I believe it means something along the lines of "I will not fall" or something like that. It basically means that you're unbreakable. You will not stop. You are dauntless.
Yeah, and this is my name from now on. Right?
Yeah,
like it's no temporary thing until
this is who you
Emperor
are.
Comes. Yeah, this is who I am. Like the Emperor is not going to change that. This is okay.
Yeah,
I got it now.
You are Perturabo.
I remember slightly a bit about him, so yes.
Yes,
go on.
there's a little bit we've talked about Perturabo, but he's one of the ones that like doesn't turn up too much in like the broad strokes of the main points of the heresy. So we didn't cover it in season 1 too much. We mentioned him a little bit, but get a bit more into it today. So you grew up and you were kind of pushed more and more into like war by your father, primarily for 2 reasons. One, you were better at it than everyone else, so obviously make you do that. And the other reason is you were an incredible inventor and architect. You love designing things and building things, right? Be it like a weapon or like a bathhouse, right? You didn't care. You just loved designing stuff and building stuff, right? It made you happy. You loved it, every minute of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you obviously preferred the non-war side of that. And your dad needed you to do the war side of that. So you were basically forced into doing the war side of it. And it's kind of that whole thing of like, if I refuse, then I don't get to do it at all. At least this way I still get to design and build stuff, even if it's not the stuff I would prefer to do.
Yeah.
So you still get to enjoy the thing you enjoy doing, but you could have been enjoying it more, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, so you ended up building like massive siege engines that the people of Olympia thought couldn't even possibly exist. Right? Like, you were bewildering the inventors of this planet by the day. But it also meant that you could take control of cities faster, because you were building siege engines in a world that basically only did siege warfare, because everyone had giant walls.
Yeah. But it's actually funny because like it's complete opposites. Like I was meant to be born to build and create, but I'm being used and forced, I should say, to destroy.
That's it.
Essentially, it's opposites, but hey, yo.
Yeah, it's... You know what? The more you look into 40K, the more you see that every single part of it is a contradiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's by design, but it also, like, just from what we've explained so far, you start to see why Perturabo ends up falling to chaos. You start to see the roots of it now, that he was forced away from who he wanted to be someone that he quote-unquote had to be. And he, like, his whole growing up, he felt like an outsider, had to keep people at arm's length and things like that, while being tortured internally. You're like, I can see how this goes badly as time goes on. Like, I can see how this doesn't get much better.
Yeah, it's like the seeds has already been planted.
That's exactly it, yeah.
Yeah.
There's cracks in this foundation, but they're going to keep building on top of it until it crumbles. Yeah. So, obviously, you're still being tortured by all these visions, but as times went on, you're using all your new siege engines and things to fight these wars for your father and claim cities in his name, things like that.
Yeah.
Just to show you, this is what you looked like when you were a young Primarch on Olympia. Oof. Pretty cool guy. He looks like a Sith Lord.
Yeah, kind of ish.
Yeah.
I like the hair though, or whatever that is.
I believes to be some kind of mechanical cowl. He's like, I'll be honest with you, he's very similar to the Mechanicus in a lot of ways. Like, he's really into his technology. He really embraces that side of things.
I do have a hammer though.
Yeah.
Warhammer.
Yeah. Oh, right. So moving forward, so as time kind of goes by more and more, and you get older, and you're, you know, working for your dad, building more nonsense, so on and so forth, and you still feel this same way, that you're out of place, but you've had this same kind of realization that a few of your brothers had at this kind of stage, that you had known for a while you weren't a normal human, because you're obviously visibly not a normal human. You're bigger than everyone by a massive degree, and you're just better than them all. You are not a creature of evolution, you're a creature of design, right? You know that, and a lot of your brothers came to that realization before you, and you're smarter than most of them. So you came to this conclusion early, but even Gilliman clocked onto that, and he's a diplomatic and tactical genius, but he's not like tech genius, you know? He's not that kind of smart, but you're the tech kind, you're the scientific kind of genius. You'd clock this pretty quick. So you've known for a long time. You were built, not born, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've, in your kind of isolation on Olympia, in your feelings of distance from everyone, you came to realize that, much like some of your brothers in the past, eventually your original creator was going to come for you.
Yes.
Right? And this did eventually happen. But there was a bit of kind of expectance about it. You were kind of waiting for it in a excited sense, rather than like a, you know, I know this is going to happen one day and I'll deal with it when I get there. Right? It wasn't like that. You were fucking buzzing for this. You could not wait for Dad to turn up.
It makes sense, you know, if you put yourself in Perturabo's place, because it's like he's smart enough to know that he was like made for something, right?
Yeah.
He and like you said, he's always felt like a side character in his own life. Like he waits for that purpose, right?
That's
he
exactly
waits for
it.
his purpose to come here, not like you say like sitting on a chair. I knew this day have come, right? With the cat like Godfather, like some bad news coming in. No. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I like that. He's buzzing for it. All
Yeah.
right.
So
like he's ready to become the main character. You know
fucking
what I mean?
right. He's ready to take control of his story. But see, there's another part to that as well, if you think about it, that if you spend your whole life waiting for someone else or something else to give you purpose, when you finally get to that stage, it's not your purpose anymore. You're just borrowing theirs.
Oh God, Ryan, so poetic.
Well, it's yeah. That's me. That's me dipping my toe into the water of philosophy. It's as close as you're gonna get to it, anyway.
To be honest, though, I feel like there's a lot of poetic in like sort of kind of poetic. I don't know how to define it, but like especially the one with contradictions as well.
Yeah,
like there's some poetic justice in that. Like I don't know, it's yeah.
There's a lot to this if you start looking into the philosophical side of it. I'll be honest.
Yeah, like there's a lot of blood and gory, but god damn, there's some good stories in there too.
Oh yeah, there's a lot more under the surface kind of thing.
Yeah, because when I came into Warhammer at first, still to this day, sometimes I'm just like, all right, it's just bloodbath all the time.
Yeah,
like I've said to you before, it's like tales of survival. I think I said, but I like it. Yeah, right, you continue.
So this part of your story, this finding this purpose. This what you've always waited for. It begins on a day where you see something very odd occur. You see lights descend from the sky and land atop Mount Telephus. Right, it's this gigantic mountain. So seeing this, you're immediately filled with a sense of kind of foreboding, but also like this is it. This is destiny coming. This is the sign I've been waiting for. So you go. You're going to go to the top of Mount Telephus and meet, you know, your creator once and for all. You've just decided this is what this is. So you leave your city on that day, take no provisions with you, and charge towards this mountain. For days you travel, right? For days you're traveling through mountains, through fucking forests, through whatever's in your way, till you get to this mountain. And then you start climbing. Yeah. You just start hauling yourself up this fucking mountain. Right?
Yeah.
And you climb, and you climb, and you climb, and you get higher, and you begin to reach kind of you get high enough that the mountain starts to get snowy, right? And this is humans have never touched this snow before, it's that high. Right?
Oh, God.
And you just keep climbing. And you climb to the point that the air starts to get so thin, it even starts to affect you. Right?
Oh.
But you keep climbing. And you get even higher. And it gets so cold that you can't feel your fingers anymore. They're frozen solid. And you just use them like an iron pick. Like a tool that's attached to your body. And start throwing yourself up this mountain with even more determination. As just keep going and going and going. Until eventually you throw yourself up a ledge. And you reach and your hand doesn't find anything to grab. And then there's that moment before you begin to fall. And then right before you start to kind of tip backwards and overbalance, a golden gauntlet grabs you and drags you back onto the edge.
Yes.
Now, this was a normal human-sized man that has grabbed you, but an immensely powerful one. Surprisingly powerful one. And he is surrounded by a few of these people similar stature to you in full golden armor.
Yeah.
And when you try to look at him, you are blinded by this whole, like, this godlike radiance from him. But after a moment, it starts to descend, and you're able to make out his features. And you are, just amazed by the beauty of this man standing before you. The I don't know, what's the word? The purity of this man looking at you.
Yeah.
And as you kind of behold his face, kind of dumbstruck, because, like, again, this is what you've always been waiting for, right? And it's finally standing right in front of you. The man looks at you and says, "Son, I have found you." And he explains that he is the Emperor of Humanity, the Emperor of Terra, and that you are his son, Perturabo, and he has finally found you. And you're amazed. Yeah. This guy even knows your fucking name. He knows who you are. And he came all this way just for you. You fall to your knees, amazed by this whole situation. This is more than you had started to psych yourself out on the climb up here. You had started to plague yourself with worries while climbing. That what if your father turned out to be some cruel bastard like your adoptive father? What if he didn't know who you were? What if he had no interest in you? Right? Yeah. But immediately upon meeting you, he knows who you are, and he saved you. He cares. From the first minute, he is more than you had actually hoped for him to be.
Yeah. So
you fall to your knees in amazement, and while you're on your knees, the Emperor kind of goes on to explain that you're just as dauntless as he has intended you to be. That he has seen your accomplishments on Olympia, and he is impressed. And he offers you a place at his side, an army of sons built in your image to take his cause forward, and to sit at his side and to learn and grow and get to know each other. And you accept with no hesitation, right? There is no doubt in your mind this is what you want. So you immediately accept. And he tells you to rise, and he tells you, "Your road will be hard, but few are worthy of it. I have many tasks for you, the indomitable, the unrelenting. You shall be my Lord of Iron."
Okay.
Yeah. So, you replied, "May it forever be so." So from that moment on, you had pledged yourself to the Emperor for all of time.
Yeah. Finally find my purpose, yeah?
You would always be loyal to this man, no matter what. That's where your allegiance would always truly lie.
Yeah. Yeah. Foreshadowing. I continue, it's fine.
So you were reunited with you were united, I guess, not reunited. You were united with your legion, which is the Iron Warriors. Their motto, which I fucking love, is "Iron within, iron without." And I fucking love that motto.
Okay.
It's just cool. It's just a fucking cool saying, I don't know. And you also travelled back to Terra with the Emperor, where you spent a lot of time discussing technology and learning from your father. Obviously, you taught him some things in the process. And you spent a lot of time with your brother Magnus, who you grew to be great friends with. You understood each other in a way that few of your other brothers could even begin to match.
Yeah.
So you and Magnus were tight AF. You guys were like best buds, right? Like Horus and Sanguinius. Right?
So, there's magic from the beginning.
That's it, yeah. You like
a magical connection.
Really?
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Honestly, there's a lot, like we've said in the past, every Primarch has another one that they were really close with, right? And it's always a two-way thing. In this case, Perturabo's is Magnus, and Magnus's was Perturabo. They just had this bond that they had with each other from day one, and I it's hard to say what it really stems from, but I guess it's that the two of them both have that kind of innate desire for knowledge. It's in different directions, but like Perturabo wants to understand technology to a point that he can then master the Imperium. So he wants to like control the warp with technology and become like the most powerful thing in the galaxy, become godlike by doing that. And Magnus wants to do that using psyker powers, using the warp itself.
Yeah.
And I guess they both have that idea where no knowledge is inherently evil. What you do with it is evil. Those who seek to do harm with it are evil. Things like that. But knowledge in itself cannot be good or bad. It can only be. And a lot of your other brothers are a lot more close-minded than that. If you explained that to like Gilliman, he would immediately start telling you about how dangerous that is as a concept. If you allow everyone access to all knowledge, people will just start using it for evil. But that's not... It's having two separate conversations, really. If one of them says that no knowledge is evil to each other, they will immediately have a philosophical debate about that in itself. If you mention it to the others, they go on to a new conversation about the harm humanity or other creatures would do with it, which is actually a separate conversation. The morality of humanity is not what they were trying to discuss. They wanted to discuss technology or science or fucking warp stuff. You know? So there's like an immediate disconnect when they try to have these kind of conversations with their other brothers. But with each other, they stay on the same page. So I guess that's an area for bonding. You can have an open conversation about the things you want to have it about, which is something.
Yeah.
So, the last thing in this kind of section of the story is what you did with your legion.
Yes.
So, in this kind of section of time before you went off crusading, you decided to review your legion's kind of statistics, their battle strategies, these kind of things. And in the process, you were displeased with them, for lack of a better word. You expected better. Yeah. You found them wanting. So you decided that punishment was in order, because they were not living up to their potential. Right? Yeah. So you ordered decimation. And decimation, I think, happens in a few of the legions. Angron does this a lot, or did this a lot, I guess. Yeah. Basically, 1/10 of the legion has to die.
At random, or?
In Angron's case, he typically made people choose who was to die. In your case, it was by lottery, right? It was just bad luck if you were one of the ones that got picked. It was random.
Okay.
So 1/10 of your legion was randomly put to death. And so you set your ground. Your reign was to be one of blood and no remorse. And your legion would fucking deal with it. It's weird how you hated your dad so much, but decided to be your dad after all this.
I'm about to say there's some similarities in this in this case.
Like, say what you will about him, he did get a lot of cities taken over.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
He wasn't a nice guy, but he was fucking good at conquest.
Yeah.
I think this was a bit of a effect of you being forced into that for so long. I think you were starting to kind of get, or you had already given up on the kind of the better half of yourself, which was like the builder side, and had decided to go full on into like the siege side.
Yeah, probably been exposed for it for too long.
Yeah, I think Dad repressed that part of you at a young age pretty well.
Yeah.
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 If he had just let you build a fucking bathhouse once, he'd have been fine, but no. So we're going to go into like the fall section of this story now. So just to let you know, this is what you looked like as a Primarch, like in your full armor and everything, fighting the crusade.
Jeez.
Yeah, you were armored to the tits.
Yeah. Hey, let's go.
Yeah, absolute fucking tank of a dude.
Iron Man on steroids, repainted and everything.
Have you seen the Iron Man Igor suit? The one that can, like, jack up a building? It's that.
No, but I feel like I need to see that.
I think it's in Iron Man 3. Look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, so, right, we're gonna go into, like, heresy, fault of chaos times now, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, your section of this story really kicks off when you hear that Olympia has gone into open revolt, right? They've turned against the Imperium, right?
Okay, yeah.
Now, this is because your dad has died, and because of that, a power vacuum has occurred in like political power, and it has caused all the city-states to individually start vying for power, and basically just thrown the whole city or the whole planet into chaos, right? So rather than like providing their tithes to the Imperium of troops and supplies and things like that, they're now just fighting among each other, and no one's taking control and organizing those things. So the Imperium sees it as open revolt because they're not paying their taxes, basically. That's all it comes down to, right? The reasons aside, they aren't doing the thing they agreed to do. We need someone to go take care of it. And it's your home world, so you go take care of it.
You go deal with it, yes.
Yeah, right? It's your planet, you deal with it. So you arrive and you saw what was going on, and you decided that the best way to get everything back in line was just to assert your dominance over them. Right? Assert your authority immediately. You did this basically through a threat. You immediately ordered that the civilians perform decimation on themselves. They had to choose 1/10 of their own population to kill. Right?
Oh god, so this again, huh?
Yeah, it was your thing at a point, right? You were like, this worked the first time with the Legion, I'll just keep doing it. Right? It comes up a lot. But you decide...
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's it, right? It worked the first time, it'll work the 10th time.
Oh god.
So you decided to order this, thinking they'll do it because they're afraid of me, and the carryover fear of having done it and the terror of that will get them back in line, right? But there's still an issue with that still no one would actually be in control of the planet or organizing anything. They still needed a leader, so they kind of just refused to do it because it wasn't actually going to fix anything.
No.
So you got really pissed off about this, and in like a blind rage, you decided to order your legion to like burn the planet, basically. And I don't mean like from orbit. You sent your troops down to genocide the place.
Oh
right?
god.
You went down with them. In the process, you found your sister, like your adoptive sister from when you were young. You met her, and she was obviously distraught because the planet was being decimated, and she just started blaming you for all the bad things that had ever happened.
Oh god.
And I guess it's kind of like that shattering of a reality that wasn't real, but you had built for yourself, right? So you saw her as this kind of like one shining like oasis in this desert of a planet kind of thing, right? Because she was the only one you had kind of bonded with. And suddenly she's screaming at you and treating you worse than the rest of those people ever had. And they were the bad part. Suddenly she immediately seems worse in contrast. Yeah. So you kind of flipped out and strangled her to death.
Oh god.
Yeah, it wasn't a good time for you.
No, at this point Perturabo is, well...
He's dealing with a lot, I'm going to be honest.
He's starting to sound a bit, messed up.
A bit like Angron?
A bit like he's turning to the evil side, huh?
Yeah.
Haha.
Yeah. So, obviously, the rest of the planet's population was kind of genocided by your troops and stuff like that. Any of your troops who refused to take part were also killed by your troops, for the record. So, that was your Estevan 3. Yeah, that was you purging your legion. You just did it by accident.
Oh god.
Yeah. And it ended, or in the end, 5 million people had been killed in the genocide, and the rest became slaves. And the planet burned.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So after this whole thing took place, you were kind of just standing on your flagship, looking down at Olympia as it burned, and you were like kind of reflecting on everything that had happened. So like 1 minute you were like fighting on the Emperor's orders against the aliens called the Hrud, which are the most ridiculous concept for an alien ever. It's nigh on impossible to explain these guys, by the way, and you know what, right? I'm going to try it. They are an alien race which they're a minor alien race, right? So they turn up a fair bit, but like not as much as the Eldar or the Necrons or anything like that, right? They're around though. Everyone kind of mentions them at some point, but you don't see them a lot. They're a bastard to fight because apparently they're like they are a quantum being, right? So they don't follow normal physics; they follow quantum physics, right? But in a really weird sense, it's as if they are in the wrong place in time, right? So it has this kind of general effect on things around them that makes it age rapidly.
Yeah.
So they have this kind of like field of decay around them. So it's very hard to fight them, because if you try melee combat, your weapon will probably rot away to nothingness before it hits them, and so will bullets and stuff. So it's very hard to actually just fight one of them. And even if
It's just a bitch.
Yeah, and if you get close enough to actually harm one of them, you'll probably age to such a state that you can't really do much harm as well. Or you'll just die.
Yeah.
They're a very confusing fucking thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They come up a lot in, like, very interesting ways, but, like... Or, sorry, no. When they come up, they typically come up in a very interesting way, storyline-wise. But they aren't very common. That's what I was trying to explain. Anyway, so 1 minute you had been fighting these guys on the Emperor's orders, you know, everything's perfectly straight and narrow exactly as it should be. And the next thing you're here genociding your own people, and you have no idea how you got to this stage. Like, you can't even figure out how that happened, really. Like, you remember all of it. You don't remember, like, you can't figure out what your logic was along the way, though. Like, this is, like, how the fuck did I end up thinking this was okay when I was doing it?
Yeah.
So, you had a bit of a moment of, like, what the fuck am I doing? The worst part of it all being that it was unforgivable what you had done, right?
Yeah.
This was a truly horrible thing, and regardless of how you got here, no matter what caused this, it's unforgivable what you did. The Emperor will never forgive you, right? And the most important thing to you is the Emperor. And now you know you can never go back to him, because he will never forgive you. Also, he's deleted 2 Primarchs and their legions before. He'll do it to a 3rd one for this shit. You wouldn't even think twice, right? Because, like, you've just built him up on such a pedestal. He means so much to you. You don't want to disappoint him. But you've done something so terrible. And Horus, on the other hand, commended you for what you had done. For your straightforward, you know, decisive actions.
Of course he did, yeah. Yep.
So he was all too happy to kind of be like, no, bro, I've got you. Come here. I'll take you in. Like, I see you as a benefit. Like, I can forgive you. I don't even have to forgive you. I don't think what you did was wrong in the first place. I'm going to tell you now, Fulgrim caused this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It was all Fulgrim being a manipulative bastard. Just so you know, that's how you ended up here. You were manipulated by Fulgrim into this whole thing. But because Horus was willing to take you in, and you were so desperate, you swore an oath of loyalty to Horus at this stage.
Okay.
This was a bond that was cemented a little while later when Horus gave you a weapon as a sign of respect. This was like his part of the deal, right? Obviously, it was like a signing bonus kind of thing. The weapon was a hammer named Forgebreaker.
Oh, we've talked about this before.
Yeah, the hammer, built by Fulgrim and wielded by Ferrus Manus until the second last battle between Fulgrim and Ferrus Manus.
Yeah.
So after Fulgrim killed Ferrus, he took his head and gave it to Horus, and alongside the hammer, he gave them both to Horus as like a sign of loyalty. And Horus now passes the hammer on to you as a sign of loyalty. So you're now wielding Ferrus Manus' hammer. You do adapt it a little bit for your own purposes. It's not really to your taste, but you adjust it slightly, and then you wield it from then on. You do lose it after the heresy briefly, but you get it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So for the rest of this heresy, you're wielding Ferrus Manus' hammer.
Nice.
Yeah, that hammer gets around, man. So, skipping forward in the whole heresy thing, when it comes time for the siege, right? Obviously, you live for this shit. Siege is your whole fucking thing. This is your bread and butter, right? You are the man for this shit, right?
Yeah.
It didn't really work out that way, though. You kept getting ousted through the course of the siege. Like, people were, like, basically just fucking you over through the whole siege. Primarily, Horus was fucking you over. So, you were, like, an essential part in taking control of our solar system.
Uh-huh.
But then he didn't let you run the actual siege of the palace. So that was the first oust. That was the first burn against you. And it was kind of only after Horus realized that he could not rely on any of the demon Primarchs anymore, because they're all fucking idiots now. Because like Angron is way too angry to do anything. Mortarian's just fucking around now, basically, because he's all nurgly now.
Yeah.
You can't, like, he cannot rely on any of them as like as a tactical commander. So he's like, well, shit, fine. He's like, Perturabo, I need you to take control, because none of them can do it. So you're like the 8th choice. It could not be more of a burn.
Right.
Exactly. You could not feel more like disrespected in this moment. He could have slapped you first, actually. Maybe that would do it. But yeah, it was a real slap in the face. But he gets you to take control of leading the siege on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So eventually you do take control, and you end up having to lead the ground forces using a series of leaders of all the legions that aren't the Primarchs, because they will not follow orders.
Yeah.
Right? Angron's just trying to kill Sanguinius. Mortarian's just fucking around. Magnus, you don't even know where the fuck he is. He's in the webway fighting fucking Vulcan. Like, it's just nonsense, right? Try to control what is going on. It's just total horseshit, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, fuck it, I'll get all their first captains and make them give the orders to their troops, because at least they'll listen to me, because they're still vaguely human, right?
Yeah.
So you've got Ezekiel Abaddon, who was Horus's second in command, who becomes, you know, Abaddon the Despoiler. You've got him passing on the orders to the Sons of Horus. You've got Callus Typhon giving the orders to Mortarian's troops, the Death Guard. You've got Captain Eidolon giving orders to Fulgrim's guys. You've got Ahriman giving orders to the Thousand Sons in place of Magnus, right? So you're just cutting all the other Primarchs out of the chain of command, because they can't be trusted to follow orders or even to pass them on properly. Right?
Yeah.
So you've outsmarted fucking Horus right away. He didn't even think of that, right? You're immediately in an actually good tactical position compared to where you were. You get everything running smooth. You're making ground. You're taking down walls. You're getting through gates of this palace. You are making progress.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got shit going on all the time where, like, Angron is being taunted, or is taunting Sanguinius. Jagatai Khan rolls out and guns down a bunch of Death Guard on a fucking jet bike for some reason. And all the time, Rogal Dorn is trying to taunt you into a fight. But he never intends to actually fight you. He intends to, like, fuck around with you for a bit so that you aren't commanding your troops properly so his can retreat. He's just trying to, like, buy time. So you never take the bait, right? You just ignore him. You're like, fuck you and your piss poor attempts at a distraction. So you're finally in a good place. You're happy with what's going on. Probably this is the first time you've ever been actually happy, right? To such a degree that you are in a good mood, right? And Abaddon realizes that you're in a good mood when you actually compliment him for noticing a weakness in the Saturnine Gate, which is one of the main gates in the palace. You noticed this flaw in it a little while back, right? Abaddon notices it and points it out to you. He's like, we should exploit this. And you're like, fucking well done for noticing that. He's immediately like, this guy's like on drugs or something. He's never been this happy before. Complimenting someone, not in my lifetime. Right? So you're obviously actually enjoying yourself at this moment, that you're like running everything. This is your game now. Fuck Horus and all the rest of it. Now, you don't want to take the attempt at attacking the Saturnine Gate, really, right? You're doubtful of it, because you suspect that Dorn knows about it and is planning an ambush, right? Mm-hmm. So you're like, look, I've noticed this flaw. He's not dumb enough not to notice it. So he's going to be expecting us to attack it. He'll ambush us when we do, right? That's got to be his plan, surely. There's no way he didn't notice it, right? He obviously didn't. He obviously knows about it and didn't have time to fix it. And that's the only reason it's still there. Mm-hmm. But you kind of get... your hand is kind of, played for you. You don't get a choice. You kind of have to go for it, right?
Yeah.
And it is an ambush, and your troops do get set back quite a bit, right? So this setback, it kind of puts you into a bit of despair, right? You start to kind of realize what's going on around you. Because where you're positioned isn't great in reality, right? It is utter chaos happening around you. The troops are vaguely following your commands, but the Primarchs are totally running amok. And at this point, they're not even your brothers anymore. Half of them are demons now, right? They're monstrosities, right? Like, you're the only one that's still no. There's like 3 of you that are still actually human, and the other 4 are monstrosities. Right? Magnus has giant wings at this point. Mortarian's half fucking, like, rotten butterfly. Angron's red and has wings. Why do they all have wings? Why does everyone have fucking wings around you now? Right? But they're all just becoming these disgusting demons. And to this point, you've also realized Horus is just... he's not even, like, the War Master anymore. He's just a pawn of chaos at this point. Like, you're well aware of this. You just wanted to be in charge of the siege. Right?
Yeah.
But you start noticing after this kind of setback at the gate where you're like, we're not going to win this. And this isn't even about brothers fighting brothers. Like, you really wanted to test yourself against Dorn, right? Because Dorn was meant to be the master of siege defense, and you're meant to be the master of siege warfare, right? The aggressive side of it. So this whole thing was like a test, like a challenge for you, testing yourself against Dorn. But that just feels tainted now. Because this isn't brothers on brothers anymore. This is you standing in the middle of a battlefield as all your brothers and their sons are being used as pawns of chaos just to try and take down the Emperor. Right?
Yeah.
It's not what it's supposed to be. It's not what you wanted it to be. You just feel totally disillusioned immediately. And on top of that, you're sitting there watching your troops run by alongside these monstrous demons and things like that, these warp grotesques. You're like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
And the last straw comes when Horus sends you an order to withdraw and disperse your troops among all the battlefields to provide support. And let Mortarion take over the main assault. And you immediately just go, no, I'm done. Fuck this. So you set out an order, but it's an order to muster your troops for evacuation.
Yeah.
So you all just leave the battlefield, go back onto your flagship, and fuck off away from Terra.
Huh.
You just abandon them. You're like, this is not what I signed up for. I am not going to be Chaos's pawn like this.
No.
Fuck you guys, I'm out. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home.
It's the second time Perturabo had like a moment of a realization.
Yeah.
Right?
He's a weirdly self-aware guy, actually.
Where sometimes it like strikes upon him sometimes.
Yeah, so you just bailed.
Screw this, I'm going home.
Yeah. So the aftermath of the kind of whole siege thing, obviously, you know how it goes on Terra and with Horus and all that. But your side of it is you kind of just left, right? You took your troops and fucked off. You also so we mentioned this in Dorn's episode. Do you remember Dorn was taunted into attacking this giant fortress Perturabo had built as like a challenge to him? Yeah, to like make a mockery of him. So you basically just left Terra and went and built this giant fortress because you still wanted your battle with Dorn. Right? You still wanted to test his skill against yours. But at this point, obviously, Dorn was like running himself ragged and could not win this fight no matter what. He was barely himself at this stage. Yeah. And obviously, you weren't fighting fair. You were taking the piss, basically, just trying to kill him. Right? So, we know how that goes. You almost kill him. Gilliman turns up with 1 million of his fucking bairns because there's so fucking many of them. And, you know, you have to kind of bail out or die at the hands of Gilliman. And who wants that? Right? That's embarrassing. Who dies at the hands of Gilliman? So, you afterwards just go back to the Eye of Terror and take over a planet. And then build it up into the biggest fucking fortress world in the galaxy. It is said to be impenetrable. It is an unbreakable fortress world. But it's also a demon world, so, like, you know, they're welcome to try. They would have to come into the Eye of Terror to begin trying, which immediately makes them likely to die. So that's fun. So, as it stands, right, Perturabo is one of the few Primarchs who is a traitor who is not a demon Primarch. Right? Technically, he is a demon Primarch, he's just not a demon prince, right? So, because he doesn't belong to any one faction of Chaos. He supports, or he worships Chaos as a whole, not as one particular faction. He doesn't care about Nurgle or any of them individually. Yeah. So he gets the benefits of all 4 gods, like Horus had. Lorgar is also the same. He follows Chaos Undivided. But the caveat of that is that you don't get the benefit of any one god. So Mortarion obviously has all Nurgle's powers and is an absolute unit now, but he's all Mingin as well, right? And same thing with Magnus. He obviously gets the benefit of Tzeentch's magical powers and things like that. And obviously Luke's in a way that matches it. You don't really get that, so here's a picture of, you know, a theoretical version of Demon Angron. But he's basically just a bigger, scarier version of himself. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
he doesn't have wings or extra arms or
like you'd still be like, yeah, that's just Perturabo. He just built bigger armor, basically. Yeah. So I suppose that's one of the benefits. He has been around a fair bit since this whole heresy thing. Like, he helped out Abaddon with the 10th Black Crusade. He has invoked some Nurgle powers to fuck with people, stuff like that. He got into a war with Mortarion, briefly. Chaos all fight each other, by the way. They all hate each other. The heresy was like the last time they were on the same page. So he was briefly at war with Mortarion. So that's fun. He lost, but it was funny. Fucked him up in the process. But yeah, at the moment, he's become a bit more prevalent. It seems like he's going to come back into the story a bit more. Because obviously he is a follower of Chaos Undivided, because no one god appeals to him particularly. But if you'll recall, we've just finished a campaign in the plot of the game, which is the Arcs of Omen, which was the new Chaos god, Vashtor the Archifane, who's trying to reach the actual level of Chaos God, who is the god of invention. And Perturabo has been, roped into helping him out with some of his plans. So, as it stands, I fully expect Vashtor to end up becoming a full-fledged Chaos God, and I expect him to become the god of the Dark Mechanicum, so the section of the Mechanicum on Mars, which is Chaos followers, because they are also Chaos Undivided, and I expect Perturabo to become his prince. So that should be fun, because apparently they teamed up to build some pretty crazy shit. Because you gotta remember, this guy's still a builder and an inventor. Like, he might be...
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's a big part of it for Perturabo, which is that he's kind of actually still loyal to the Emperor. You know? he didn't really turn away from the Emperor. He felt like he didn't have a choice in the matter because the Emperor wouldn't, take him back after what he did. But that doesn't mean he personally doesn't still vow loyalty to the Emperor. Yeah. And even then, he also ditched out on the siege as soon as he realized that that's all it was. It was just trying to get to the Emperor. Like, he clearly never actually was on board with Horus's plan. He just had to have somewhere to go, really. He's just kind of going along with it, I think. Which is quite depressing, to be honest with you.
It is, but that's been his whole life, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Honestly, I think on some level, he's still that child who's wandering purposelessly. Really trying to... still doesn't really know who he is or what he's supposed to be doing. Desperately looking for something to give him purpose. And just constantly latching on to someone else's purpose to fill that gap.
Yeah, I get the same feeling.
Yeah, which is quite depressing in a way.
It is.
I really like the idea of... I like the idea of redemption arcs. I always enjoy a good redemption arc. I also like the idea of a bastardization arc, which is kind of the reverse of a redemption arc. But, there's two traitor Primarchs I could see actually getting a redemption arc. Perturabo is one of them. I could see him, turning loyalist again. Because he's not imbued with some crazy power of a chaos god to keep him alive or anything.
No.
So he could realistically just start protecting loyal worlds one day. He could do that. There's nothing that would stop him, He could just turn up in orbit above a planet and just start setting out defenses and then fuck off. What are they going to do? Yeah, he could just start being a good guy and nothing's going to happen. It's not like Nurgle's going to take away his powers. Oh no, the other three will still give him them. Who cares? Even if they all take him away, he's still a fucking Primarch and he's still got, whatever he wants to build, right? He's still a unit. So realistically, he's still at a stage where he can do whatever the fuck he wants. He owes no debt to anyone.
Yeah.
Except the Emperor, realistically, because he vowed that he did. But I like the idea of one day him just deciding to fight for himself, Yeah. That'd be nice. I'd like that.
That would be nice.
It would be nice. But the other one I could see is Alfarius. Because there's always been some debate about what the fuck Alfarius is doing. But realistically, that's the whole point of Alfarius. He doesn't even know what he's doing half the time, I don't think. He's too sneaky for his own good, honestly.
Yeah.
Plus, we'll obviously go into it properly in his storyline, but there's a whole bit in Alfarius' storyline where it turns out that he was told by a bunch of, a council of Xenos, led by a Farseer from the Eldar, so someone that sees the future, that if he stayed loyal, then the Imperium would fall, basically. So he had to turn traitor to make things work out in the end. But the debate then goes on, because obviously he turned traitor, he turned traitor. But there's debate of, was it Alfarius or Omegon that turned traitor, and was it Alfarius or Omegon that met with the council? So maybe they told Alfarius if he stayed loyal, shit would hit the fan, and then he tried to, and it was Omegon that actually turned evil or something. We really don't know what the fuck was going on there. His whole storyline is very convoluted and confusing.
Yeah.
It's probably all also a lie.
Probably.
Yeah, but that's a story for a different day. The Alfarius episode. So
coming to your cinema very soon.
That's the point of fame we need to get to. A point where we can have our episodes in cinemas. That would be insane. Don't know how we'd swing that, but I'm sure we could do it.
This summer. Oh, man.
Alright, so last thing. We need to see where our boy Perturabo ends up sitting.
Yes, sir.
He is last in C.
Oh, man, that's rough. I feel like, from an outsider's perspective into his a deeper dive into his story, he feels a lot like a side character. If you know what I mean? Side character turned to bitch boy at some point. If you know what I mean? I might be harsh, right?
It's a bit harsh, but yeah, I get what you mean. There's a lot of like he's kind of just going through the motions with a lot of it. You know what I mean?
Yes, and that's
like
what
he
I mean,
doesn't
like, he's
have
not-
his own goal or his own really anything.
It's not his narrative. It's like it's not his. Like you said, he always wants to latch onto somebody else's purpose. Instead of his own, because he was purposeless. Essentially, right? In many ways, and that gives minus points in my book. Like you say, if he gets like a redemption arc at some point, that could give him some purpose.
It could,
right? If he wants to, you know, like get back on track in sort of, you know, in sort of way. I actually feel like he stays there, Ryan.
You think that's a good place for him?
Where he is. I think that's a good place for him as it is right now. Yes.
Well, that's perfectly fair. So, would you like to round out?
Sure thing. So, thank you guys for listening to this episode of Iterators of the Imperium podcast. It's been me, MEZ, and Ryan, and we will see you in the next one. Take care and peace.
Bye.